All right. Well, hopefully Dick will come back, but we can
Okay.
start Imago. Tell me about the name Imago. What does it mean?
So it means to imagine, and it's loosely Latin. Our founder, Jim Shank, spent 11 years in the seminary. So he was kind of had picked up Latin doing that and wanted to create sort of a sense of like possibility and hope when he started the organization. So that's what it means. And we get it pronounced many different ways. So congrats on pronouncing it the way that it's intended. We've had Imagio and Imago and all sorts of ways, but
All
that's what
right.
it means.
Well, let
Yeah.
me just say I'm Ruth Cleet, the trustee of the Elsa Soul Foundation. And then we have Jordan.
Hello, Jordan Kusher, Program Officer of the Elsa Soul Foundation.
Hi, Andy Kusher, one of the advisory board members. And Dick is also an advisory board member if he sneaks
Awesome.
back in.
Great.
He'll be around.
And then, yeah, my name is Chris Clements, and I am the executive director at Imago, and have been for the last 16 years or so. Do you all feel, and I don't want to like step on y'all's process or anything like that, but like, is it something where I just jump in and start chatting, or do you have guiding questions that you want me to connect to at all?
We can kind of do it either way. It's kind of up to you. I guess since you're new to us for the most part, if you just want to give a very brief overview of the organization, maybe a little bit about what the application is. We've all read it, but maybe you put it to life a little bit, and then we can fire some questions as you go.
The grant request specifically.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So just to that end, briefly, Imago's been around over 40 years. We were started in 1978 by a husband and wife, two social workers. They were actually based out of Covington. So, and it started Imago as a way to connect people to each other and build community. Shortly after they started Imago, they had a founding member reach out to us and said that people are just not connected not to each other, but they're also not connected to nature and the planet. And thus, Imago took this turn as an environmental organization. And that's really where we're at. But I think the reason I mentioned some of that is because our roots and a lot of what we do are still in community work. So even though we are an environmental organization and our underpinning is around getting people to be greener, a lot of what we're looking for is those intersections between how we can help the planet, but also help people, just being started by social workers. The main work that we do falls into three different broad areas. So we are either teaching about sustainability, and we do that through a number of different ways, but the main way is that we have a sustainability theme that we pick once a quarter, and then we throw workshops at that theme, and we throw events at that theme. We do publish resources on that theme, and we just try to get people, the idea behind it is to get people to feel as comfortable making changes in their own lives to be greener. So our current theme is called Welcoming Wildlife, and that theme is all about how people can make their own outside spaces, whether it's a porch, a backyard, just more wildlife friendly. So that's bucket area number one. Bucket area number two is that we do youth education programs. It's probably our longest bucket. We've been doing that for a really long time. It's where my experience mostly comes in. Before I was an executive director, I was an educator. We do a number of different things with that, but the biggest piece with that is that even though we have a nature preserve, our goal is to get any young person that we work with to be able to go outside on a regular basis. So that means for us setting up nature areas at schools. So we work with Cincinnati Public Schools. We'll go to the school. We set up a nature area, so a bird feeding station, a fossil station, pollinator gardens, vegetable gardens, things like that. And then we work on creating the resources to get to foster those teachers to take the kids outside. So we've got a few Cincinnati public schools that we work with. We also do after school programs, and then we do a summer camp as well too. So those are youth education programs. And then lastly, the third bucket, and I say this for last because it kind of relates to the grant the most, is that we have, we preserve nature. So we are physically in Price Hill, East Price Hill to be exact, just west of downtown Cincinnati. We have 37 acres that we protect there. It's all free and open to the public. Most of what people see is they're not contiguous, not 37 acres altogether. It's 21 acres at the end of the street and then 16 acres, which is like our front door. That's where people come and hike the trails and things like that. And the grant itself would obviously, as with most things in life, everything's connected. But so all those pieces get covered, all those buckets covered, but the grant itself is particularly going to move this project that would be due on our site and our land. So I just said a lot, obviously, to talk a lot about Imago. Any questions on just some of that stuff before I can give you a little more info on like what our purpose of the application is, or what we're shooting for the project. Go ahead, Andy.
Just a real quick question. I understand what you're doing, going to the schools and setting up a little bird design or nature preserve, this or that.
Yeah.
We have worked sometimes in the past with other things like, the farm, things like that. Are you bringing field trips from school kids to your preserve ever?
We do that as well. In fact, our history was actually mostly that. When I came to Imago, we were primarily doing that. We were bringing kids to our nature preserve, and we were seeing around 10,000 kids a year in that regard. And the reason we started switching our focus some, we don't do that as much, is because we were feeling that in an hour and a half to 2 hours to 3 hour field trip, we weren't having as big of an impact as when we were able to build relationships with the kids. So our summer camp kids, we saw like, oh wow, we see this kid 5 times a week during our summer camp, and oftentimes many weeks of the summer. And you get to know them, you get to know their families, and you start really actually feeling like you can make some behavior changes, some impacts in that regard. And so we said, well, how can we replicate some of this feeling during this in a school year, if you will? So that's why we've turned our attention more towards that end. Probably our biggest program, just as a quick little follow-up to that, is that our biggest program around that is we've just developed a relationship with Pleasant Ridge Montessori. We've been doing it for about 6 years now, and we are one of their specials. So they have an art special, they have a music special, right? Most schools have that, where they have an outdoor education special, and we lead that. So every kid in that school goes outside with us once a week when we're not in coronavirus times. That is, yeah, that changes things.
And did you say that I might have missed already in your first sentence?
That's okay.
When you were talking about the going to the schools, how many schools are you going to?
So
like
right now,
pre-COVID,
Yeah, pre-COVID. So our partners are Pleasant Ridge Montessori, Academy of World Languages, Reese Price, soon to be Gamble Montessori, Roberts. So that's 5 partners right now. 5 partner schools, all Cincinnati public schools. We do a few other one-off things with some other partners here and there, but those are our main ones that we have built relationships with and continuing relationships.
Okay.
What, do you interact with any other nonprofits in your area?
So many. Yeah. I mean, I think that's actually the way that we try to do the work, is that we've learned that the way to try to make impact is not necessarily to always be the one that's going and seeking new people, but rather finding other nonprofits that are already serving a population, a community, and asking to partner with them. So for example, a lot of the work that we're trying to do right now in our own neighborhood of Price Hill, we're working with places like Price Hill Will, which is a community development corporation, and here Santa Maria Community Services, which is a social service agency here, the library, things like that. So everything that we do, again, this kind of goes back to our roots as started by social workers. Everything that we do, we try to do it as part of a network or a collaborative or in community with other folks, and not really just be like, well, we'll just find the people ourselves. And the other thing that we do a lot of is that we talk to other organizations that are in our area of expertise, right? So environment and environmental education and things like that. We compare a lot of notes. We ask them what they're about, what they're doing. We don't want to be duplicative. We want to be learning from them if possible. So those are some of the things that we do in that regard.
What about, was it groundwater?
Groundworks. We just,
Yeah.
you were brought, your name was mentioned indirectly.
We love groundwork, and we actually just talked to Tanner and Alan about one of our schools that we both have an interest in working with, Robert, and how to make sure that the work that we do with the younger kids, we tend to do younger kids than they do. They do a little bit older kids. The work that we do with younger kids can inform some of the work that they intend to do with some of the older kids at Roberts. So we chat with Groundwork all the time. We're big fans of their program.
Do you do anything with Ohio River Foundation or the Wave Foundation or the Ohio River, the Foundation for Ohio River? There's two of them.
Yeah, so we don't know them as well. We know of them, and we've done a few things, mostly in just being connected to them through Green Umbrella. Are you all familiar? Have you heard that term, the Green Umbrella? Yeah. So, but that's as far as we go, really, with like having done anything specifically with those guys.
Okay. Yeah. Green Umbrella was going to be my next one.
Yeah.
How about Adventure Crew?
Adventure Crew, we love those guys as well. Yeah. So they're actually as a really side thing, but we have one of our fun little new projects that we started a library of things, which is essentially kind of what it sounds like. We have all these tools. We have all these like event things that we've had to use. And so we thought instead of as a way to encourage people not to buy their own and thus like promote consumerism and landfill and stuff like that, we started a library of things to have those things borrowed, and Adventure Crew will be borrowing some of our tables next week. So yeah, we're big fans of Adventure Crew's work for sure.
Do you ever go to the Cincinnati Tool Bank to borrow stuff?
Yes, we do. Yeah. So we don't typically need to because we have our own tools. But every once in a while we'll have a work day that's big enough that we have to borrow extra tools from them. Yeah, the tool bank is a fantastic resource. We're doing a project at one of the new schools that we hope to start developing a relationship with is Gamble Montessori in Westwood. And we're going to work with the Rotary Club to do some work there, and we'll probably be borrowing tools from the tool bank in order to do that project.
What about Keep Cincinnati Beautiful?
Yeah, not as much with those guys. I mean, we're familiar with their work and we're familiar with who they are and what they do. We know one of their staff members live down the street from us, so we have a connection through that. And just more cheerleading on for that part, but haven't done much with them in the past.
Okay.
I sidetracked you with the question. Maybe go back to specifically like this grant ask for what Arts on the Trail is. Mostly?
Yeah. So the idea behind this is that, as I mentioned, we have 37 acres, 16 of which is free and open to the public. People can walk around and things like that. And it's centered around this sense that we want our own Priceville community and other urban communities to have as much opportunities to spend time in nature as possible. So you probably have heard this many times, so I'll just be very brief with this, but there's a lot of science now that talks about spending time in nature being such a boon to wellness, right? So physical health, mental health, emotional health, and all that kind of thing. So, but we also are seeing, conversely, that people are spending less and less time in nature, and that is especially true for people who live in dense urban areas. And it only goes up as you go kind of like the lower the socioeconomics you go, the less time in nature is spent. So we have this wonderful asset, and we're not seeing folks use it as much as we think can be used. So our intent is to have this be our front door to not only have people spend more time in nature from our own community and from some of the connecting communities, but also to start building deeper, more authentic connections with community members as well. So the name of the project is called the Trail Invitation, or the Trail Invitations Project, and it's simply putting into place pieces, installations that are going to act as invitations to get our community members to come out. Typically, when people have come to us in the past, it's because we've invited them to a program, a camp, a workshop, or something like that. This is going to be more of an invitation that people can take on at their own leisure or at their own time. So art is going to be one of those pieces. But then we're also looking at these nature education stations, these sacred stations, and then some of the amenities that go with that, right? So like making sure that the trails are in good shape, benches, map, things like that.
So are the artists that you're doing, I think you had mentioned in the application, you may have already even contacted maybe 2 or 3. Are these artists like college or even high school or students, or are you paying professional to instill some type of art there?
No, it's the latter. These are going to be artists that have they have a portfolio. They've been doing art in the past, and we are paying them a stipend in order to put these installations in.
Okay.
We're not opposed to, obviously, and we've talked to some classrooms, college classrooms and high school classrooms about having installations that would correspond with this project, but not to be the centerpiece of it. We think that part of this has to be like, it has to be art where a professional is making it and putting it out there.
How did you hear about the Elsa Sewell Foundation and the opportunity to apply? If you
Oh
remember.
gosh, that's a great question. I heard about Elsa Sewell, I want to say 2 or 3 years ago, and it might have actually been, okay, correct me if I'm wrong, because now like kind of just going on memory. I feel like there was a time where Elsa Sewell really started becoming more on the forefront of like, and just being more known among nonprofits. Does that resonate? Does that seem true or not?
It's possible. I say established after Elsa's death in 2010. It took us a few years to get up and running. I'd say around 2015, we were probably kind of fully funded at that point and fully operational. So that would make sense. About 2017, we would have been.
Yeah, that kind of feels like to me like hearing about Elsa Sewell then, and I want to say that it was probably like another, it might have also just been another organization that you all had funded that was like, oh, that's interesting. I'll check these guys out. I put in a letter of intent, not last year, but 2 years ago, which was not accepted. And then just put one in this last time. So yeah, that's kind of my history with the Elsa Sewell Foundation and Imago's history.
You might have heard about us. We put our grantees on our Facebook page and LinkedIn. So you might have seen something there. But then didn't you have an application in at Social Venture Partners?
Yes, we did. We were the second grantee of Social Venture Partners. So we and the Civic Garden Center we were a co-grantee. The first grantee was another environmental organization that it's not coming to me right now. And then we were in that second round. So we've had a long relation. Gorman, yeah. So we've had a long relationship with SVP, and still have relationships with some of our team members and whatnot.
Yeah, I remembered hearing your name at Social Venture Partners all the time.
Awesome. That's good.
How I knew how to pronounce it.
There you go. See? That's fantastic.
So let's see, what else Dick, do you have any questions?
I guess my question is just to clarify. So this project that you're asking for this funding for is a specific project that you want to do there on your property.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It will be a permanent. Is that a permanent thing, or is that going to change? Or
no, it's going to have a sense of permanence to it. So the stations that we put in will be permanent. Now the intent for the art is that it will rotate out to give new artists a chance to put things in. We have in our call to artists are asking artists to consider pieces that will last between a year to 18 months. There's a couple reasons to do. One reason that we're doing that is because we're asking artists to consider using natural materials, and then obviously out in the elements, those don't last as long. But then the other reason is that we want to highlight as many people as possible and give as many people as possible a chance to kind of put their voice and their stamp on it too.
Well, that's good. It's a good opportunity for you to expose artists then. And I mean, how do people know about you now? Come to see you now?
I think there's like in a number of different, each person has come to us in so many different ways. I think probably the biggest thing is that our youth education programs obviously have connected us to young people, but also their families and their teachers, their principals, and so forth. So we have those connections. We've been doing workshops for a really, really long time. So we have a long history of having those things and having connections in the community. But maybe actually kind of going even back to like the questions that Ruth was asking earlier, is that a lot of times people know us just because we do tend to work a lot with other organizations and or are familiar with other organizations and our other collaboratives. So, you know, Ruth just kind of mentioned SVP, like we have connections in that regard. So there's a lot of people that know us through that. And we also have a social media presence and a website and so forth and so on too. Yeah.
Okay.
So are your other things like the sacred spaces and the exploration stations, these other playscaping, are those up and running now, or are those goals that you want to be doing? And let me just interrupt one more along with that. Maybe if you could co-host, and if you were talking about, do you have any pictures of your preserve even in general, or what were you going to show us?
Yeah,
because I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, you want to see, I was thinking, well, here's my first question. Would location be important for you to see, like where we are in the world? Like, do you want to know like where the preserve is located?
Yes.
Based on,
I was going to ask that.
Well,
great. Then,
like you
in
said,
that case,
you're last, and we like audio visuals, so
okay,
go ahead.
Let's make me a co-host when you are ready.
I did it. I did.
You did it. So now, give me a second. I'm going to share my screen. Just give me like one quick sec here. All right. Apologies, I'm kind of tooling around here. Where is the share screen? There it is.
Don't ask me.
Ah! Okay, you guys see my screen now? It looks like you do.
It's black. There we go. Got it.
Yeah. So just give you a really quick. This is us here.
Oh, you went
Just to
away.
give you
We don't see anything.
where you.
It's just,
You don't
it's
see
loading. I
anything?
think it just might take a second.
It's okay. It's back.
Okay. All right. Okay. It's back. Tell me when you're ready.
We're ready.
Right.
Okay. This is us here. We're in the left-hand side. That red chunk there. So you can see like here's Price Hill. You can see where we are with relation to like downtown Cincinnati and so forth and so on. Here's a little bit closer view. So this is the upper portion is the 16 that acts as the nature preserve that's free and open to the public. This down here, we're just protecting. We haven't quite figured out what we're going to do with it. So it's just a forest right now. There's not really an easy way to get into it or anything like that. Just to give you some landmarks, this is West 8th here. And if you're familiar with Price Hill, this is a huge cemetery in Price Hill called St. Joseph Cemetery. So,
Well, okay. Can you tell me where is Price Hill Will or Santa Maria?
So they're a little bit further north of this. So like Warsaw Avenue is just north of this, and they're up in that region.
Okay.
Yeah. This would be Elbron Avenue coming up to like, so that's Mount Echo Park right down here.
Mm-hmm. Where's your office?
Office is right there.
Oh.
Yeah. So when you get here, actually, I think the next, when you get here, I'll show you. This is our first go at a trail map here. When you get here, that's N right there. And then our office is just tucked back into the woods there a little bit.
How did you get all this property?
Oh, great question. It all came piecemeal. So the biggest chunk of it came because Cincinnati public schools had the land and they were going to build a school here, and they never did. They had actually eminent domain. So there were if you hike through here, there's these old foundations and so forth and so on. There were houses here at one time. The land was eminent domain in order to build a school, and they never did. And Jim and Eileen, the founders, lived on Enright, which is the street that we're on, and approached the public school to say, hey, you're not going to use it. Can we use it for education and as a nature preserve? And that's how we started. We did some fundraising to protect that 8, And then the next 8 that we protected was connected to that 8 to make that 16. So we approached the landowner there and did fundraising around that. And then we've just, every piece after that, excuse me, has just been these piecemeal chunks where we find a landowner that is protecting something that's green, that's not been developed, and gives a chance to just protect more green space in that regard.
Do you have little seminars and instruction on, say, like birds or other nature type things?
Definitely. Yeah. So we do, we're doing that a little bit less now because of the fact that like Corona makes things a little bit more difficult. But that theme that I was telling you about, the welcoming wildlife theme, is all about that. It's all about how you can create wildlife friendly outdoor spaces in your own home. So like native bees and pollinator gardens and bug hotels. And we just did a thing on rain barrels, and rain gardens and things like that. So yeah, we do those kinds of things for sure.
Do you ever do any programming like that in Kentucky?
Have we done programming like that in Kentucky? I don't know that we have. Typically we would work with a partner if we were going to do something like that across the river. We would be open to it, but I don't think we've worked with a partner across the river to do those.
All right. Well, the reason I mentioned that, in Fort Mitchell, there's the Highland Cemetery.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And they have a naturalist on their staff.
Mm-hmm.
And don't remember her name right now. It'll come to me. But anyway, she likes to have programming there for the community.
Okay.
And she's always sending out, pictures on birds and other things that she finds on the grounds. But they have walking trails there.
Yep.
And so I didn't know if that might be something that might be available.
Yeah, I'll definitely approach. I can check in on that too. Thanks for mentioning that. I think Andy, you had asked a question just about like, what are we looking at here? And I think one thing that I did want to share is this. This is the first art piece that we did and got the whole thing started. So we have been talking about putting art pieces on the trail for forever. I mean, for the longest time. And I think it's really one of the pieces that makes Imago a unique organization as an environmental organization, is that we're not focused on just like one approach to get people outside, but just like, we know art can be a way to do it. We know obviously nature is a way. So we have the woman on the screens right there, Amy Tuttle. She's on our board, and her friend Emily, she's part of Indigo Hippo, which is another really cool nonprofit. And so they were like, we have some time in September and we're done talking about doing art. We're just going to do a piece. Those willow pieces that are behind there that Amy built, those actually came from the Far Flung exhibit that was in front of the Taft Museum. So if you remember, in front of the Taft, there was a huge piece that was, it was enormous, and it had willow pieces everywhere. So those willow pieces came from there. And once Amy and Emily put that in, it turned the key to say, like, we can definitely do this work. We have the community to do it. We have the energy to do it. And that got us going on this kind of work in terms of that really kicked off the Trail Invitations project and put the thing into gear.
That's pretty good. How many miles of trails do you have?
It's just under a mile. So in terms of like a height, and actually that speaks to some of the, I think, a benefit of this project, which is because a lot of like people probably are not going to come to Imago to go for a long hike. I mean, it's not like Cincinnati Nature Center or Mount Airy Forest or something like that. But people can come here to have an engagement with nature without feeling like they have to like go really deep into the woods or something like that. So for somebody who feels potentially intimidated by nature or doesn't feel as comfortable with nature, it's a very easy and simple way to get outside and outdoors.
Yeah, how would you get somebody to come to your nature walks?
That's the whole point, right? Is that's why we're doing the invitations. There's a second piece of this, which I mentioned a little bit in the grant, and that is that the bigger, broader intent is to have deeper community relationships and engagement with our Price Hill neighbors, and also with other communities, but in particular with our Price Hill neighbors. And for that, really working with our Price Hill partners to make that happen. So we don't think that just having a space and saying, hey, we have a space, like come and see us, that is one step, but the next step is to actually work with our partners to create events, happenings, opportunities, and so forth and so on for our community members to come out. So it's not as simple, as simply saying like, hey, we have a nature preserve, you should come and spend time here. That will get some people here, but the bigger thing is building relationships with community members in order to invite folks to come out.
So who owns the property?
We do. Imago does.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a private nonprofit, so it's not city owned or anything like that.
Huh. Do you have any improvements on the property? Like if you had events there outside, a concert or lecture or something, do you have restrooms in the preserve?
Yeah, so we have, I'm sitting, we have an education building, and it has a small education space, an office, kitchen, which is where I'm sitting right now, restrooms, and then we have a picnic area, and then we have trails, and we have a couple fields that we do different things on, including an event. We do our big event every September is called Music in the Woods, and we see around 250 people at that event for an outdoor music series for that. And then we do workshops here and summer camps here and things like that. So we do have some infrastructure in place. We just don't, we could obviously use more, but yeah, we do have some pieces in place.
Does anybody, just another organization I thought of, what's that organization that rescues the birds over near Raptor? Did they ever come over with birds?
Yeah, they have. Yeah, for summer camp stuff, like we bring guest presenters from time to time, and Raptor's come and done a guest presentation for us for sure. Yeah, they do good work.
Yeah. All right. Well, Jordan, you have anything?
I don't think so. No, I can't think of any questions. Do you have questions for us, Chris?
No, I just am grateful that you guys, I think it's a lot to ask a foundation to visit all grant applicants. So thanks for, giving us the time. I think that's very kind of you. And, I guess I would just say, I know that you've talked to 38 others, so there's a lot of information out there. If in any of this, you're like, can you speak more to this? I'm happy to follow up with an email or another phone call or anything like that, if that's helpful. I know. So if you didn't get a question answered, don't be shy, ask away.
Okay, will do.
Well, but for the virus prior to this time last year, we actually would be in your office.
And that would be great. And I think that would allow you to see, all the things that are happening a little bit more easily. And you could still come to my office anytime. You can obviously hike the trails, holler at me, and I'll walk you around, and we could do it in a socially distant and a safe way as well too.
So that's why we've encouraged people in these Zoom site visits that if they have videos or pictures or any type of presentation, it helps somewhat to put things in perspective, just like you did.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. There's I can send, Ruth, I'll send you, there's a quick little link to just an overview video or our 2020 kind of like video. It's a minute and a half, but it gives a really good idea of like all the things that we've done this last year in a very, as you all know, a very difficult year. We got a lot done this last year.
Do you have it handy right now or not?
Yeah, if you give me a second, I can go find it. Give me 1 second. Yeah. Yep. It's on our Facebook page. Sorry, I have to move you all to get to the Imago page. Where am I videos. There we go.
Is there sound?
There is sound. It's just a song, but apologies. You're not hearing it?
No.
Okay. Give me 1 sec. I don't know why you wouldn't be hearing it. The volume is up and yeah. All right. Well, it's just music, so
Okay.
there's nothing to go with it. Yeah.
That's okay.
So yeah, that was it.
Okay. So are you saying you like honeysuckle, or you consider it to be, what do they call it, an invasive?
Invasive.
Yeah, it's an invasive. We are definitely trying to remove it, but in doing so, we're also like want to find other ways that we can use it as well. In fact, that honeysuckle event that you saw there, it was our third one, and we just do a really tongue-in-cheek fun event where we do a trophy hunt, but instead of going after animals, we send crews of people out to try to bring back the biggest honeysuckle they can find in our preserve. So yeah, and we have we really cheese it up. We have like a scale, and they can weigh them and all that. It's a competition and all that. So yeah.
So do you have many Girl Scout or brownies and Cub Scouts that come out?
Yeah, for sure. We definitely have scout groups that come out. And the thing that we really had a lot recently is we have a lot of Eagle Scout projects that are done on our preserve. So a lot of just from where I'm sitting, I could see there's a bug hotel that was put in as an Eagle Scout project. There was a fence as part of our pollinator garden that was put in as Eagle Scout project. There's work on our entrances. So we have a pretty strong relationship with Eagle Scouts, and we get a lot of great Eagle Scout projects on our preserve.
To other schools, I mean, I want to get back to school. And they're looking for field trips. I would think a lot of times the environmental field trips do they ever come to you and see your layout there?
Yeah, absolutely. We definitely host field trips on our site. And I think, Dick, to that point, one of the things that we've been talking to schools a lot is that what better, right now being outdoors is safer than being indoors. So if we can help schools get outside, that's key, whether it is at our preserve or even at the schools, so they can do education outside. And I think one of the things that we talk to teachers in schools a lot is that obviously we want to teach about science because that's, where our bailiwick is and being green. But outdoor education can look like a lot of different things. It could be math, it could be language arts and things like that. And it's sometimes just using the space outside to do that. So we do that a lot where the space and getting out is the key, but figuring out different topics and working with teachers to come up with different topics that they could do outdoors.
I know I was when I was judge executive, we started some nature programs at our parks because we have a lot of great parks in Kenton County. And the guy who took care of it was really very creative. And then he had weekly, monthly type, monthly type programs and things of that sort. And we had a ton of, we had kids coming from all over the place to see it.
Yeah.
And there wasn't any charge for it, but I know he developed quite a program. I hate to see him leave because he left just after I left, went to Frankfurt. But And so they never really started that up again, which I think is sad. But he was very successful at it. So I know there's a lot of really interest, I think, by schools just because to just have some place for them to go that's not far, that they can get to it, and it's a good field trip. So
Absolutely, yeah.
I remembered the name of the person at Highland Cemetery that's the naturalist. Her name is Gail Pilley, P-I-L-L-E.
oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gail Pilley. And the executive director at the cemetery is Tom Honeybrink, Honeybrink. So our law firm represents the cemetery. And so we've done a lot of work with them in trying to get the nature preserve up and running. And my father was on the board there for 50 years. So yeah, it'd be real exciting. What Dick just said, could do a trial run with Beechwood School, which is right down the road, maybe 2 blocks away from the cemetery, and do a nature type thing.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. We, one of our longtime friends and former board member, Dinah Devoto, did an art installation actually out of honeysuckle. So all these things kind of come back together. She did one at Highlands, and I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it wasn't just her. She did it with other people, but it's a wonderful, wonderful piece.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it kind of got it. That too also got a ball rolling. And I've hiked at Highland Nature. I didn't realize that Highland was hosting groups and programs, so I'll definitely check into that. But I've definitely hiked at Highlands before, at Highland Nature or the cemetery.
Highland
So
cemetery,
yeah,
that would be very nice.
I think we might be out of questions. Our board meets next Thursday, April 29th. And we like to get back to everybody within a week of the meeting. So that next week, the first week of May, you'd be hearing back from us.
All right. Thanks, you all. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Have a good
Bye.
weekend.
Have a good afternoon. Have a good weekend.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care.
That was fun. What?
I'm exhausted. 38.
Joy, I can't hear you. Andy,
I'm logging off 38 of these and I'm ready.
I said, woohoo, we're done.
okay. I liked him. I thought he was nice.
I did too. I was just
No,
exhausted
I
after
just
5
told
today.
Jordan, it's my theory. I want to take 1,000 from groundwork and 1,000 from adventure crew and something else and give him like 3,500. That's my theory of spread it around, which you don't like.
No, I like him. I like him.
How'd you feel about Four Paws today? A little rival to your Circle Tail. A little bigger, badder.
That's what I told her.
What do you think, Dick? What'd you think of Four Paws?
Well, I mean, it's a huge operation. I mean, my God, it's not what you consider a typical nonprofit, but when you said the size of their staff and the space in that, I said, gee whiz,
75 full-time employees.
Well, they're 24/7. Yeah.
Well, they're doing a lot. They're doing, 100 dogs a year. She said like Circle Tail did 9 over COVID. They did 89. They're just like a bigger, maybe better Circle Tail. You don't like to hear that.
Well, they are. I mean, they're because they're international, for heaven's sake. That's what blew me away. The fact that they send dogs all over the world. I was just amazed when she started talking about how big they were. I said, wow, that was, what they do is great. It's just a bigger size than Circle Tail, but for Circle Tail, I guess they do pretty much the same kind of training, don't they? I mean, for the most part.
They do. The difference is on the funding side, this organization, Four Paws, they make people pay and they should really make it so it's paid into a general fund instead of for that person.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, but they seem to have. They seem to be able to. They've been operating a long time, so they seem to have found the formula that works. But
yeah, it's amazing.
I can't imagine coordinating all of that.
Oh.
Especially internationally, I can't imagine coordinating all that. That would be a nightmare.
Well, you were on for squash, weren't you?
Yeah.
What'd
Yeah.
you think of squash?
Well, I was impressed with her. I thought she was very energetic and I think we all, I think when we said it, when we talked about that originally, we said, you know, how many squash players are there, you know, around the area? It's not terribly popular, but I mean, I think the program seems to be pretty good. I kind of like the program and it seems that they are succeeding with the kids that they serve but I thought, as I said, she was enthusiastic, and I think it seems like they extend themselves
Yeah.
with those kids a
And
lot.
it seemed like it really resonated with that child that spoke about it.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, I think when you see that, and you see the kids that and I'm just looking at the kids that they serve, it seems that they're pretty darn successful with what they do.
Yeah.
I like
All
that.
right. Well, Jordan, you want to take a nap or something?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
I'm not logging off. See ya.
Just saying, we're like Shakespeare. We had 38.
Yep. Adios. Have a good weekend.
Bye.
Bye.
Why?
Bye.